But before I do that, I wanted to have a warm welcome to our two guests, Hannah Thornton and Lauren Owens. So I'll do the service of giving them a nice introduction. So I'm sure they're too humble to kind of brag too much about themselves. But Hannah there is the founder of Next Generation Health, a performance nutrition company where she works with a range of different clients from elite athletes to corporate companies, schools, clubs, teams, and of course the general public. Hannah received her bachelor's in sports and exercise science and nutrition from the University of Northern Colorado, where she received a Division I basketball scholarship. She received a master's in applied sports and exercise science in 2020. She's a member of the International Society of Sports and Nutrition. She is the captain of the DCU Mercy Super League team and a member of the Irish senior women's basketball team, who's of course preparing to start competing again in the summer. Hey. And Hannah, of course, has been also representing Ireland in basketball since she's been 16. Loads of blushing there, Hannah, yeah?
I'm going so red. It's too early.
Lauren, on the other hand, Lauren loves to translate cutting-edge nutrition into research. Cutting-edge research into easily to understand actionable advice and engage people in conversations around all areas of health and well-being. She graduated from DIT in 2014 with an honors degree in human nutrition and dietetics. She spent some time researching, looking at cancer prevention, doing online education, and more recently, some private consultation. And of course, what we're doing now, corporate wellness. And I think maybe the coolest combination of all, her background, she has a background in food service. We're working in various well-known restaurants over the years. And it's really nice to have those two combinations. You know, you can't just talk the talk, you can walk the walk as well and learn how to apply. So that's really cool. So Lauren's areas of special interest, which we're going to be diving into the elements of today, are gut health, digestive disorders, skin health, chronic disease prevention, immunology, mental health and performance, and neurodegenerative. It's way too early for something wrong. Come on, neurodegenerative. So yeah, I'll give you a quick introduction, guys, to what we're going to be talking about today. So we know that 2020 and 2021 was a really turbulent time. So I think a big theme of what we've looked at Zevo is this idea of kind of restorative well-being coming into, I guess, the summer of 2021 and moving forward. And of course, a big part of this is going to be nutrition. Like, we get to practice what we eat every single day. We're eating all the time. So if we just have that little element where our nutrition's off by a couple of centimeters, we can really start to see issues because we're doing it so regularly. Especially in the current environment, you know, we're hearing so much of these terms like remote friendly, remote first, hybrid models, all these sort of different things. And we're moving towards this kind of transition period where people have a lot of unknowns and don't know what the next version of work is going to be. So I think a nice place possibly to start is kind of to review where we've come from. We've come from this remote work environment. So maybe, Hannah, you could kick us off talking about, you know, what has the diet been like for a lot of people when they've been in this remote work? What have been the big challenges? What have possibly been the benefits of, you know, working remotely and their nutrition around that?
Yeah, I think everybody has lived through like the past year, and everybody knows like the struggles that they face with cooking at home, eating at home. Like, I don't think we need to delve into that too much, but I do think that it's the perfect time to talk about like the next step. So we've all had like a year of like snacking, maybe when we shouldn't be snacking, like doing things that, but now it's the new normal. So now we kind of have to find like our rhythm in it, and we need to be able to kind of change and build habits that are actually going to benefit you, because like food affects absolutely everything that we do. So it affects your mental cognition. So when you're sitting there at work all day long, like you might not think it, but what you put into your body is going to affect. And I think, Lauren, you'll chat about it later on with your gut health and brain and access and all of that good stuff. But it's really, really important that you're aware of what you're putting in your body. So again, perfect time to kind of start new habits. So what I'm seeing, and the challenges, but what I'm seeing is that like people might be keeping snacks at your desk, or your desk is too close to the kitchen. So if possible, if you could maybe have your desk away from the kitchen, don't have food on your desk. Like, have a bottle of water, a glass of water, but like you would in the office, refill it every single hour. So you're kind of getting up and moving. Don't drink more caffeine than you usually would when you were in the office, just because your coffee machine is right there probably, or some sort. And one of the most important things that I tell people to help them in the week, plan your week, but also plan your meals. So before you go for your food shop, write down every single meal that you're going to cook and you're going to make, and even your snacks, because then you know, first of all, when you go to the shop, exactly what you should be buying. You're not buying food that's going to go to waste, which I think is also a problem at the minute, because we're buying loads of food and we're actually not eating it, and it's just going in the bin, unfortunately. But if you can plan out all of your meals and all of your snacks, you'll buy that, you'll cook for that, there'll be no waste, but also you won't be tempted to eat something that's there, because it won't be there. Do you get me? But it is really, really important, and it's really easy to do that, and especially don't go for your food shop when you're hungry, because we all know that that's not a good idea. But if you can plan as much as you can, and then you can stick to that plan, that will slowly build in the good habits that you probably want to achieve, and then you want to get going in the future. But yeah, that would be, and also it's a great time to try new recipes and try new foods that you maybe wouldn't have. You've loads of time now to do that. But they're probably my top tips to go forward now and try and recorrect maybe some bad habits that you might have had before. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't want to go off on too much tangent, but I think that's a really good tip. Like, so many people, when they're going shopping, they get their food ingredient list of things they think might be healthy or things they might need, and they don't actually translate that across into what they're actually going to be cooking and meals and, you know, things like that. So that's such a practical, nice tip. What about you, Lauren? What are you seeing in terms of, you know, maybe the people you're working with? What have been some of the challenges that are kind of been coming to you over the last 12 months?
Yeah, so you know, it's been a really great experience, because I've literally talked to like thousands of people since it kicked off, you know. And so one of the biggest issues when it kicked off really was just the loss of routine, the loss of structure. You know, like, our diet is so anchored to our work routine. So once that was gone, for a lot of people, the eating got a little bit all over the place for a lot of us, you know. So I think it was the structure and the boundaries, you know, like even looking at people's kind of work life, there was a loss of those clear boundaries between work life and home life. And similarly with the eating, you know, there was kind of less boundaries around work, like, you know, Hannah mentioned there with the snacks at the desk and stuff like that. So I think bringing back in those boundaries with regards to food times, the times that you're eating. And so, like Hannah said as well, really coming up with a very clear kind of meal plan, at least Monday to Friday, breakfast, lunch, dinner, snacks, and bringing back in that structure, you know, I think is really big. But also looking at the access of the food at home, you know,
Yeah.
You know, if there's temptation in the kitchen, that's not a problem if you're at work. But if you're at home, you know, that's at the back of your mind. You're gonna be aware of that all the time. So for some people, that's not an issue. But other people, if you're having issues controlling intake of certain types of food, it's best just not to have them there. You're making your life a lot harder. And I suppose one final point that I think is really important is just to really tune in with yourself, tune in with your body, and kind of tune in with those internal cues of hunger and satiety, and let that guide you on when and how much to eat. Because you know, as opposed to eating in response to boredom or stress or emotion, that's what I saw a lot of over the lockdown, was people eating because they're bored, stressed out. So just really tuning back in with the body, I think, is one of the best things you can do there as well, and addressing all those things if that's an issue, addressing the stress and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, again, really good stuff, because like I think as mentioned by both of you guys, it's such a problem if you're working super close to your kitchen and there's unhealthy foods that you kind of feel like you shouldn't be kind of consuming as part of your normal diet. It's really hard to say no to those things. So yeah, I think you mentioned first that possibly the first port of call there is actually not to bring them into the house. But that can be difficult for some people, I think, because, you know, based off your family and based off what other people want, some person might have a different kind of strategy around their nutrition than other people. And there might be, that big 6-pack of crisps that you really like, that you know that you're tempted to. Like, is there any strategies that you guys can think of if there is food in your home that's possibly tempting you or interrupting what you feel like is optimal for you? How can you, you know, work with that? Is it a mental thing, or is there kind of barriers that you can put in place, you know, move them somewhere else, move your workstation, things like that?
I think it's like, we have to say, like, it's a great point. Like, people have kids, you've got families, like they don't want to eat the same foods as you. But just as like Lauren said, check in with yourself. So it's really important that you set your own goals. So you set specific goals that you want to achieve, and then just ask yourself, like, and it's hard, but you have to do it, and you have to build that habit. Like, is this aligning to my goals? Like, if I eat a full packet of biscuits now while sitting at my desk, am I going to achieve the goals that I want to achieve? And then if you have those goals written out and you look back at the end of the day, or you look back at the end of the week, you can see like those pitfalls, and you'll see the common occurrences. Oh, I'm actually not that like structured with my meals and my snacking that I need to be. And I'm letting those little foods in. Whereas like, if you can be like, this sounds really weird, but I love the satisfaction of like crossing off good goals that you like, you know, like a tick, like you've done that. But it's great to be able to do that at the end of the week and be like, you know what, I actually had a really, really good week. I felt really good. My work was good, but my food was on point. And to be able to do that and then move on to the next week is really satisfying. And it's the small things at the minute that make such a difference. But if you can check in with yourself, I think it's really important. That's a great point, Lauren, and be like, is this going to like help me achieve what I want to be able, like what I want to achieve? And that's probably the hardest thing to do, but it's over time, it's the best, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, like I it's kind of, I suppose, easier said than done, you know, easy in theory, just don't buy them. But like, you know, we still do buy them. And especially if you have a family, you know, like that's, you're living with other people, you know, you don't want to impose your, you know, issues on anyone else. But I've had clients come up with a lot of very creative solutions to that. Like, some people would kind of do some baking and like, you know, kind of section them out and like freeze loads of them, put them in the freezer so they can't go back for loads more. Or, I mean, sometimes just kind of having nice things in the house that are maybe less likely to be overeaten, you know, like not large packets of stuff, single packets, small fun size things, or foods that you're kind of less likely to eat. Like for me, you know, I'm way less likely to overeat a darker chocolate, you know what I mean? So like small things like that. And also kind of having those boundaries. So deciding, you know, not depriving yourself entirely, being like, okay, I'm gonna have this amount of chocolate after dinner, and that's kind of, so you're kind of setting those boundaries around those foods. And to understand, I suppose, as well, that a lot of these foods like were literally designed to be overeaten. You know, they're like synthesized in labs trying to hit those bliss points in your brain, like Pringles. You know, can't stop. Once
you pop, you just can't stop.
Yeah, like, so, you know, it's really not, the odds are stacked against you when you have a lot of those foods in the house. But definitely out of sight, out of mind as well. Just like keep them tucked away somewhere, you know, and lots of healthy alternatives on hand that are almost equally as appealing in terms of like taste, you know.
Yeah, for sure. I think there's some really good tips there. And I think, like, you know, if you are in that family structure, possibly just recognizing that what you eat, you will inevitably buy, you know. So maybe it is that discussion with your family. How rarely do people throw out a pack of crisps or a chocolate bar, you know? Like, if you buy it and bring it into your house, at some stage you're probably going to eat it. So it's really possibly recognizing that. And then, you know, if you need to have those discussions with family members and support structures around you, possibly that might be a good next step. Would you guys say that?
Definitely. Yeah, I think communicating with the family, I've had a lot of clients who, you know, are such good intentions, and then it's kind of the behavior people around us does affect us to a huge extent, you know. So having those conversations, if that is an issue, I think is really important as well. That's a really good point, John. Yeah.
Okay, perfect, guys. Let's start to work towards performance, and maybe definitely into Hannah's sphere, but also of course into Lauren's. And we're looking at things like, what are the kind of nutrients that kind of impact work performance? What's going on there? Why do some days you just feel like you're just not there from a performance standpoint? Other days you're just in like performance nirvana and everything's going really well. Is that affected by nutrition, Hannah?
I love performance nirvana. That's a great. I'm gonna rock that. It's 100% affected by nutrition. Like, obviously there's sleep, hydration, all of those things, stress comes into play, but your nutrition plays a massive role in how you perform every single day. Like, not a lot of people know, but your brain needs energy to work every single day, but it needs a certain amount of carbohydrates, and we turn that into glucose, and that's how your brain needs energy. So I see a lot of people when they think, oh, I'm going to go on a diet, blah, 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 I'm going to cut out carbohydrates. Like, your brain needs it to function. So even if you're sitting at a desk working from 9 to 5 and you're not eating the right foods for your brain, like, you're not going to perform well. You're not going to get that performance nirvana. But you need specific foods to help you just even to sit there and concentrate every single day. So like a diet rich in good sources of carbohydrates, proteins, fats, vitamins, and minerals, like it's easier said than done, but to know, I think probably one of the best things to do as well is like if you've had a really, really good day of performing, of like you were on point with your calls, you were able to go and exercise later on, because nutrition is so specific to each individual, like write down what you ate and go, okay, that was a good meal, like that suited me. Because we are trying like different foods, and some foods might agree with us, some foods won't agree with us. But as well, like if you feel great at the end of the day, be like, okay, I probably fueled myself very, very well this day. Like you need to eat for performance. And as workers, and as when we're transitioning back into the office, but even if you're literally just sitting at your desk every single day, you need a certain amount of calories in. And I think that's a big thing. Like we cook calories, we cook carbohydrates. Now your performance is going to go down the absolute toilet. Like you won't be able to concentrate. Like, and that's a massive thing, especially for businesses. You need to be able to concentrate and be on the ball. But like it'll affect every single thing that you do. And even if you don't, like, what about the rest of the day? Like it's not just work. You have to spend time with family, friends, train. Like you need to be every single thing that you do. So I could talk about this all day, but it is a massive thing. So like really good sources of carbohydrates, try and get good fiber in, whole grain, that kind of thing. Lots of good starchy vegetables. Like it's not just white bread or like crackers or rice or anything for carbohydrates. We can get them in a number of different areas. And then good lean sources of protein as well, like chicken, fish. Just make sure also that you're having protein at every meal, like, and every snack. So a snack isn't a bar of chocolate and a packet of crisps. It should just be a smaller meal and try and contain all of those really, really good macronutrients. But Lauren, do you have any? Sorry, I kind of went on a tangent there.
Yeah, no, I mean, your nutrition has such a profound impact on your mental and physical performance, your work performance. I think one of the most obvious ways is really how it contributes to your energy levels, you know. So work can be very demanding and your diet's going to provide, you know, calories, energy to fuel those activities. But it also affects, you know, your gut health and your metabolism, your hormones, you know. So some people could be eating plenty of calories but still feeling fatigued. You know, why is that? You got to look at the quality of the foods that you're eating, but also, like, I do see people who eat healthy foods as well, you know, and still feeling fatigued. So people are dealing with gut health issues. They're not absorbing the nutrition. They're still going to end up with deficiencies. And a good example as well would be people type 2 diabetes. You know, there's plenty of sugars in the bloodstream, can't get into the cells, you know, so the diet impacts your metabolic health. And whether or not you can actually extract that energy, there's a lot has to happen between when you eat the food and when it's producing ATP, you know, in the mitochondria. But another great example of the impact on work performance would be the impact on brain function as well, you know. So like Hannah mentioned, your brain requires a lot of nutrition. There would be a big impact on just all sorts of cognitive functions like learning, memory, concentration, you know, even higher functions like innovation and creativity all require a really healthy functioning brain. That's really going to impact your just overall productivity, performance, you know, your ability to like complete tasks and just deadlines, you know, things like that. And I think people are just way more resilient when they are well nourished. You know, they don't burn out as quickly. They have stronger immune system, less sick days, you know. So overall, there's just such a huge impact on the work life and also the mood and the mental health as well. Like people are super crazy when their blood sugars are dropping a bit low. So, you know, we have the impact on the blood sugar stability, like, you know, Hannah was mentioning there as well.
Yeah, great points, guys. I think it's misunderstood, as you guys say. Like, you know, if you were going to do a marathon or a long cycle or something like that, everyone kind of understands to some point that exercise and activity needs to be fueled. But when it comes to a work day, people think, you know, a cup of coffee in the morning that they can kind of power through it for the whole day, and that doesn't require, you know, this type of fueling. But as everyone knows, after a stressful day or stressful week, you're literally fatigued and frazzled, you know. So there is a pretty extreme strain on the system. Is there anything, Lauren, that you would recommend for people that want to get their their performance boosted, like where would you first kind of direction would you send them? Would it be looking at their breakfast, or how would you kind of prepare them? Is there any small tips you'd have?
Yeah, so I mean, just to hit very basic targets for like your macros, carbs, proteins, fats, fiber, most people just need 2 or 3 balanced meals in the day. That's just quite basic, you know. So obviously balanced meals would have your protein, slow release carbs, like Hannah mentioned, lots of colors and some healthy fats there too, ideally in whole food form as opposed like avocado versus like lots of oils. But you want to also, I'd say, just focus on very micronutrient dense food. So focusing on kind of nutrient density, like lots of vitamins and minerals, primarily via food. So there's lots of kind of nutrient dense foods that you can kind of add in that will really boost your intakes of certain key nutrients, like berries, you know, are fantastic brain boosting food, high antioxidant, lots of vitamin C. Dates as well are really good, especially if people have a sweet tooth. It's really rich in minerals and potassium, which is very important for your nervous system function. Fruit in any form, really, or fruit nut bars, not too super nutrient dense, and they make really handy snacks, very satiating. What else? Eggs, super underrated food, you know. Very great brain boosting nutrients like choline, which is really good for learning and memory. So yeah, maybe some key things. Dairy is also super nutrient dense if you can tolerate it. Ideally probiotic, you know, live beneficial bacteria as well. And all your meats, good quality meats, lean proteins, super rich in, particularly red meats, would be rich in like a lot of minerals, iron, zinc, selenium, B12, B6. All these are really crucial nutrients for producing neurotransmitters and your kind of brain chemistry, you know. So they'd be some maybe key things to include. And obviously then you need the kind of the oily fish for the omega-3s, which is very important for mood. But if you don't eat oily fish, you can also get it via algae-based supplements as well.
That's a really nice comprehensive list. I'm hesitant to hand that one across to Hannah and see if there's any extra tips, because I think you seem like you covered a lot of things there. But
the one thing that I would say, just those foods were excellent, but is like I see it quite regularly, especially with business people, is like their blood sugar levels throughout the day, and understand. But say for example, somebody had like a croissant and a coffee for breakfast, their blood sugar levels or something to that extent, a high sugary cereal, you'd spike through the roof, right? But what happens at like 8 a.m., you get loads of energy, but then you crash like below baseline. So if you ever get that feeling of like, oh, I need sugar, like I need like chocolate at 11 or like the tea break kind of thing, that's because like your blood sugar levels all day are like this. Whereas what would be great would be to try and transform that person into like a slow releasing blood sugar levels. We don't need to spike during the day. We don't need that massive energy increase, because then you just get that crash. And it makes for a lot easier sustainable energy, but also like you're way less tired at the end of the day because your body has to go through all of that all day. So if you choose the foods that Lauren said, like whole grains, oily fish, avocados, all that really, really good sources of food, like a porridge over a sugary cereal, simple little things, you'll have that sustained energy for the whole day and you won't feel those crashes. So you won't crave that sugar. And inevitably at the end of the day, you'll have more energy. You'll be in a lot better mood. So simple things like that can have a massive impact on people's performance. And as I said, like if you have an energy crash or you feel like you need loads of energy, like chocolate, or you're craving something, write it down at the end of the day, because then you'll be able to notice, oh, okay, that's because I had this or that or this or that. And it's just simple little things. Like your body is smart. It wants to tell you kind of what's going on. So as, again, Lauren said, intuitively just listen and see what's going on. But that would be another simple idea, I would say, to try and implement.
Definitely. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And I think a lot of people, we get this question all the time. What can I take like as a snack to give me that kind of 3 o'clock boost when I've got the down feeling, or the 11 o'clock boost? And people are always looking for this like magic silver bullet that's just going to, you know, make them feel great. When in reality, as you said, Hannah, it's really, if you can figure out what in between them, what's going on, then you potentially don't need that, and you're pretty smooth all the way through. And it probably jumps us onto the point of coffee and caffeine, because that's usually people's way of kind of masking that kind of blood sugar control and those feelings of ups and downs. how should people be utilizing coffee and caffeine throughout the day? Would you recommend, is there time zones that you should? How much, what types? Lauren, maybe you could jump in again and give some help for everyone. I'm sure there's a lot of coffee drinkers watching right now.
Oh man, I love coffee so much. Like, I really love it. But yeah, like, there's pros and cons to it. Caffeine is a very potent nootropic, so it can really enhance concentration, focus, alleviate fatigue in the short term. It's used for sports performance. Potential benefits on the gut bacteria as well. It's like prebiotic antioxidant. But then, the downsides, it can exacerbate, blood pressure, anxiety. It definitely mess up your sleep, not just the sleep onset, but the deepness of the sleep as well. So if anyone deals with sleep issues, you really want to cut off from noon latest. And looking at all caffeine sources as well, dark chocolate, green tea. But yeah, coffee, I suppose, is an individual thing. Some people are very sensitive. So like, you kind of have to find your safe spot with caffeine, and between 1 and 3 coffees is pretty standard safe intake. But like I said, some people are just very sensitive to it. So I think always emphasizing good quality coffee as well is important, because I have a lot of clients who, like, it would be a bit of a trigger for their IBS or something, but when they go with good quality coffee in moderation, it's actually fine.
It's a great tip. Not many people think of that. They always just think coffee is coffee, and they don't realize that there's a big spectrum of what coffee is, and how it affects us, So most people notice kind of a little bit. They go to one coffee shop and, oh, that blew the head off me and I feel anxious, and then another thing, oh, that's not. But in reality, it has a big effect on us. And one thing I'd like to jump in, because you mentioned it about the sleep, and people don't understand how long caffeine stays in the system. People think, oh, if I have a coffee 4 or 5 o'clock, that's not going to have any effect. But in reality, caffeine has a very long half-life in the body. So if we have a coffee at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, only half of that caffeine's left the system by 9 o'clock, 6 hours later. And, it can take up to 8 or more hours for it to fully leave the system. By the time you're going to bed at 10 or 11 o'clock, you still have that caffeine in the system. So as you mentioned, Lauren, noon or possibly, in somewhere around before lunch is probably the time to kind of stack them in, I would say. And it probably starts to transition us nicely into this transition potentially back to the office. We're slowly hearing about people moving back to the office, and there's obviously pros and cons to that from a nutrition standpoint. A lot of people took a little bit more ownership during this period, potentially in cooking, kind of looking after themselves a little bit more. Other people went the opposite direction. But possibly, Hannah, what would you see as some of the kind of pitfalls, potentially people going back to the office? What are people potentially anxious about? Do people need to be thinking about things like meal prepping again and all these sort of things? What's the feeling among people?
I think people need to be like kind to themselves with going back into the office, like, because it is going to be a different experience going back in. Like, everybody's going to feel something different. But one thing I say to people especially is, like, if you have meal prepped, you've been really, really strict with your food, you've been like on a particular regime, you're going back into the office, like, there will be times when everybody's going to be wanting to go back and having lunches with each other and going out and having that kind of thing, and enjoy them and don't feel guilty about them, because that is something that people might be a little bit anxious about, which is totally fine to be anxious about, but also enjoy it. Be in that moment, have that food that you haven't had in ages, like that really nice lunch or something like that. And just know that when you go home, like, your meal is prepped, you're ready to have your dinner when you go home. But for that first few weeks, just get used to being back in there and manage your energy levels, because it'll take more energy to get into work and be around people. So make sure you're eating enough for that, but also don't feel guilty that you had like a really like a special lunch or something like that on a Wednesday or something. Like, enjoy it as much as you can. But then if you are prepping lunch, just maybe like be a bit more specific about like the shelf life of particular foods, if you want them to last the whole day. I think prepping for the office is a really, really good idea, and having lunch in there, just because then you know exactly what you're having. And also bring your own snacks, because I know in an office, at least at home, you know what's there. But in an office, when you go back, there could be anything. there if you're allowed to have individually wrapped snacks because of COVID. But have your own snacks and have something to look forward to, and maybe even bring your own coffee if the coffee's not good. But just have things that you'd be like, oh, okay, I'll have that. Just as Lauren says, have healthy treats there instead of reaching for something that might impact that blood sugar spike as well. But I would definitely say prepping food is an excellent way to go, and having your meals in with you. But be kind to yourself if you're going to go out for lunch. Even if you go out for lunch for all the days that you were in the first week, that's fine. Enjoy it, but go home and have a healthy, nutritious meal that you'll be able to balance the two, kind of thing.
No doubt. What about you, Lauren? Did you give any tips to people transitioning back to the office? Are people getting anxious? For me anyway, I've heard a lot of people, being able to manage their weight quite well over the remote period. Some people went the other way, but are people concerned about maybe putting on a few extra kilos or something like that when some of that control has left of them?
I don't know. Maybe I'm seeing a skewed part of the population. Majority of my clients have all been dealing with total opposites. They've gained a lot of weight being at home, just simply because of more food intake, less activity.
Sure.
But I suppose challenges going into the office, I think it'll just come down to, like what Hannah said, a lot of planning, organization. A lot of people have had more time to cook at home. And if you're losing time now because of the commuting into work, you might need to plan out the meals a bit more, see if you need to set aside time for meal prep or batch cook and things like that. So planning, and also I'd say maybe just sussing out the area. I was in town recently. I was like, oh, I'm going to get lunch here, one of my favorite places. And it just totally changed. And they're only doing like takeout coffees and croissants. I was like, what? So you need to kind of see what's the food availability like now? What's the food supply there? Kind of thing. And yeah, it'll be a different experience for everyone. I know some people are anxious about going back to work if they're just worried about the situation. And, I've had one client who was just not getting on with people at work, so she's worried about that. So she has more kind of support from like psychology and like other kind of stress management things,
And what about, I suppose, when you're in the office, there is sometimes, that big thing of sweets beside you, or you're kind of being pulled along by the herd of people going out for lunch, and you're kind of being taken in the wave. Is there a place, we're hearing more and more about mindfulness and things like that. Is there a place for mindful eating where, you have your lunch and a little bit of quietness and really try to, bring yourself back to what's going on around you, Hannah?
Yeah, there is. I love speaking with people about mindless versus mindful eating, because people don't realize when they are mindless eating, and we do it all of the time. Like if you go to the fridge, you eat something and like, what did I just eat? That is mindless eating. Like it's just not being in tune with what you're putting into your body. And we've become, I think, like you can catch yourself doing it, maybe eating in front of television, eating till you're feeling full, not to like nourish your body, eating for that fullness feeling, which is when you get that you're kind of overeating to an extent. But if you can eat without having a phone in front of you, a screen in front of you, massively important is to not eat lunch or dinner at your desk, like eat it somewhere else. Don't cross the two together. But if you can eat and be at not at one with your body, but know when what you're putting into your body, and like listen to your body, that's being mindful, and like chewing your food and not just like shoving it in your mouth, that we all might do in a hurry or something like that. But try and don't eat until you're feeling that stuffed feeling. It takes a while to realize that it's stuff, and it takes a while to send that message to the brain to go, I'm actually full now, I'm grand. So give it a little bit. But also one thing that I've been telling people to do, especially during lockdown, but it will work when you're in the office as well, is go for that little walk after you have a meal. So like that post-prandial walk, even just 10-15 minutes, it'll make a huge difference on your digestion and so you're mindful, you're eating, you're not in front of a screen for like 15-20 minutes. You're going to go for your walk. That's going to help that feeling of full, that maybe is going to take a few minutes to kind of wait and get into your body. But if you can, as much as possible, don't eat in front of a screen. And I know that's easier said than done, but you just don't know what your body is just going through the movements. It's not enjoying what it's eating. It's not going to tell you when it's full. You're literally just like mindlessly binging on a Netflix and just shoving your dinner in your face. Like, And I know we've all been there. Sure, I've been there as well. But as much as possible, try and be mindful with what you eat. Yeah, it's hard, but it is worthwhile.
I think it's a really good tip. And I think, as we transition back to the office for some people, and some people obviously aren't, it's probably a great opportunity to ingrain some of these habits or break some of the negative habits that you've caused. Anytime when there's a bit of a shake-up in your life, we can start to, ingrain new things to replace them. So that for a lot of people, just taking their time, maybe just getting into the habit. Okay, every day for lunch this week and work, I'm going to just leave my phone at my desk and bring my lunch somewhere else and just enjoy that lunch by itself for what it is. Can be a powerful tool for a lot of people. So maybe for people watching out there, take this opportunity if you are transitioning to ingrain new things, So before I go on any further of a tangent, I do want to hit on gut health, because it has been just, we hear about it all the time. I think a lot of people are possibly confused about what is gut health, how the gut influences the brain. So maybe, Lauren, could you give us a bit of a kind of an overview of gut health, and from a very basic standpoint, let people know what it's all about?
Yeah, it's a huge topic, gut health now, and it's so important to support a healthy gut. This is where we digest and absorb nutrients, right? So there's a huge impact on your nutrition status, which is going to impact your energy and everything. But it's also the home of your microbiome, the gut bacteria, and they have a huge role in health now. We know they help us to break down and assimilate foods. They're kind of like a little chemical factory. They produce like neurotransmitters and all these cool substances. They activate hormones for us, so those, you really want to keep those guys in good nick. But the gut biome would also regulate our immune system, which is really important in this current global context, as well as just, metabolism, immune health, detoxification. This is where we eliminate waste. There's a huge impact on the skin health and all this kind of stuff as well, And a good way of understanding why or the importance of the gut is looking what happens when it goes wrong, right? So when you see gut disturbances, dysbiosis, this has been linked to autoimmune conditions, chronic diseases, diabetes, obesity, neurodegenerative conditions.
That's one each now, Lauren. Yeah.
So why did I put that word in there? So impacting the mind-gut connection, the mood, the work performance. So the body is a wholly integrated system. So there's nothing that the gut is not going to impact in some way. Yeah.
That's brilliant. Yeah, and then for people that are maybe concerned about their gut health, possibly are having some mild symptoms of something, what's the first kind of port of call? Should they be looking at changing anything, or is there someone that they should be speaking to, or what's the kind of first steps for people that want to investigate a little bit more about their gut health or improve it?
Mm-hmm. So I will say first, if there's nothing actually wrong, like check in with the doctors. But in terms of like just basic gut health stuff, I think number one is definitely diet. You really want a healthy, balanced, nutritionally adequate diet. There's no like one gut health diet. There's no one size fits all when it comes to nutrition in general. So might look a little bit different from one person to the next, but usually I steer people towards just traditional whole food diets. But you definitely want diversity. I suppose a good diversity of food in the diet, which might help to support diversity of gut bacteria, which might confer disease protection. But also looking at, adequate fiber that's mainly coming from fruit and veg, plant foods, so that's going to support just regular bowel motions, things like that. And you can also talk about things like prebiotics, probiotics. The prebiotics will be just kind of like superfoods for the gut bugs, things like berries and artichokes. Again, just plant foods can help to support the gut bacteria. And also it's definitely well worth to go incorporating some probiotic rich foods, the fermented foods like cultured dairy, live yogurt, kefir, stuff like that. So that would be some basics around the diet. Hydration, so important. Your gut's trying to produce all these juices and filter stuff to your liver and move things along very narrow tubes. If you're dehydrated, you're going to struggle to do that big time. I would avoid stuff that's toxic to the gut as well. Like alcohol is very toxic to your liver, which is part of your digestive system. But also looking at things like stress management and emotional regulation, because stress is a big trigger for IBS and Crohn's and all sorts of digestive issues. And I, again, just come back into that kind of listening piece. If there's something going on, you need to listen to the gut. Your body's constantly giving you messages about what's going on. So if a food's not agreeing with you, you need to kind of respect that, and listen to the gut. Yeah, listen to the gut. And obviously check in with the doctors if there's something up to address that in a timely fashion,
And you mentioned alcohol, Lauren. Now, I know a lot of people enjoy, the odd wine, the odd beer, and especially I'm hearing on the radio every time I'm driving now, people, the pubs are back open and there's all this promotion around it. What, guys, should people be thinking about when it comes to alcohol consumptions? What are, where's the spectrum lie? Are people, okay to be drinking a little bit every night, or should they be stocking it toward the weekend? And what does it really influence around our metabolism and around our nutrition?
I think, look, as a country, we drink. I think during lockdown, probably people were catching themselves drinking maybe a little bit more. If you can limit alcohol to the weekends, brilliant. That's your first step. Done. Fantastic. Well done. Try and avoid hard alcohol is what I say. Don't buy it. Don't have it in the house. It's just, as much as you can, don't. So have like beer or wine, and try and only have it if you can after maybe a big meal, as much as possible. And again, like, enjoy it. So as we've spoke about, like, being mindful with your eating, be mindful with your drinking as well. Like, don't, as much as you can, don't drink in excess. But if you're having a glass of wine, absolutely enjoy the heck out of that glass of wine and be around people. Don't be like if you're relaxing watching TV, great, but really enjoy it, and then stop. Like, as much as you can, don't drink over excess. But I do understand that people are going out and, like, we're allowed to kind of socialize and drink again. But it is really important to note that the body doesn't like alcohol. Just as Lauren says, like, it does not like it. If you wake up and you don't feel great, like, it affects everything. Like, the fear on a Sunday, like, it actually is scientifically proven that it does cause, like, higher levels of anxiety. Alcohol does. So, like, if you're one person that's maybe anxious about going back to work on a Monday or something like that, I would try and avoid drinking as much as possible, because it does raise those levels, and it's just not good for you trying to get back into that work mode on a Monday morning. Lauren, would you want to pop in there? Sorry.
Yeah, no, totally. Especially in the context of, like, mental health, work performance. It's a neurotoxin. Like, it will kill your nerve cells. It's a central nervous system depressant. So it's major health risks associated with, like, excess alcohol. So try not to get wrapped up in all the promotion and marketing now just because it's summer. Obviously, it can be incorporated as part of a healthy diet and lifestyle, but you just want to be careful. Again, it's just about respecting the body. That's all it's about, at the end of the day. And particularly if you do deal with, like, ongoing anxiety or any mental health issues, you would really want to minimize that for sure. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Brilliant, guys. Now, I know we could probably talk all day, but I see we're running up against the barrier of time here. So I really appreciate both of you guys' input. There's really good practical tips, which hopefully you guys will be able to take away and apply to their day. So up next, we have Dr. Sabina Brennan, chartered psychologist and neuroscientist, to discuss how to manage stress, brain health, the neuroscience of sleep, stress management, workplace wellness, and how to be a superhuman. I need to watch that one. I hope you enjoyed this insightful discussion, and thanks again, guys. Thank you, Hannah. Thank you, Lauren. And thanks for everyone that watched.
My pleasure.
Thank you, guys. Thanks.